race for the crown continues with round 2 of the Crown Racing Series, which comes from the Fuji Speedway. 4.563 kilometers of racetrack, or 2.835 miles in old money. 16 turns lie ahead, and there is rain in the air, just to make life a little bit more difficult for the 17 drivers out on track. If you weren't with us at Silverstone for the curtain raiser, it's a 50-minute race to come with a mandatory pit stop. The cars are a mixture of GT3 machinery from Ford, Ferrari, Porsche, Corvette and Mercedes, with a fixed setup to provide maximum focus on the drivers who have taken to the circuit from qualifying. And as we've already heard, it is mighty close out there. The checkered flag has just been waved, so we'll run through the grid very shortly. Adam Reed alongside me, Chris Stevens, in the commentary box. And Adam, I mean, this rain is going to make life so difficult for the drivers, and a very different picture to what we saw at the first race.
Chris, absolutely glad to be alongside you. I'm really looking forward to seeing what we've got on today, because this is going to be a super close encounter. You know, just be having a look at the qualifying times. 1.2 seconds is the entire field spread. That was very much the case when we went to Silverstone. I believe the gap was about 2 seconds amongst the 17 drivers that we do have here as well. We now just watch some of them make their way around the cooldown lap as we see those last couple of moments just making those final improvements.
Yep, final improvements coming in right down to the death of the session. And it was David Bozga in the Ferrari who just sneaked over the line to score provisional pole. But there are still cars coming across the line. Andrea Pagnini in the Porsche going up to 3rd fastest. So we heard Brad talk about the rear engine car doing very well in the traction zones in these conditions. Anybody who's watched the Nürburgring 24 hours will remember Kevin S. epic drive from 11th to 1st a few years ago, but still the front row is not settled as Alexander Paulick now goes up to the front row of the grid and only 0.02 of a second away from David Bozga, who is 3rd in the championship going into this one. Remember, he was the driver who was challenging Witvoet for the lead in the second part of that race. And now every car is across the line, and it is Bozga on pole position, and an incredibly close field, as you mentioned there, Adam.
Yeah, absolutely. Really looking forward to seeing how this is all going to pan out. So we'll bring the grid in just a moment. But you're seeing what appears to be some sunny skies. But here comes the grid.
So it's David Bozga for the first time on pole position in the Ferrari. It's an all-Ferrari front row with Alexander Paulick alongside him. Mihai Neg up in 3rd position, the Romanian ahead of Andrea Pagnini in the Porsche. Then it's Joop de Vos, another of the Stuttgart cars, with Carl Domark in 6th position. And then comes Gregory Hovesen, who was fastest for quite a bit of that session. And then Igor Kos inside the top 10 with Balázs Edelyi and Nikolai Pedersen completing the top 10. And then Silverstone winner and championship leader Luciano Witvoet down in 11th position ahead of Comrade Kula, Cody Cosford, Danny Neo, Caden Richardson and Ryan Woodrow in 16th position in the Corvette. And then at the back of the grid is Federico Alberti, the Italian, in the Italian car. Now, this is a very spicy grid indeed. The first of the Fords in 3rd position. We talked about the Armada there. They're locking up the sort of back end of the top 10. But we're talking about drivers here. Alexander Paulick, for example, in the number 32 car, who didn't even qualify inside the top 10 at Silverstone, and Mihai Neg in the number 7 machine, who qualified 8th at Silverstone. So this is just completely topsy-turvy to what we saw in the first round. And it goes to show, Adam, how different these conditions can make the order. But it's looking actually pretty dry and pretty sunny for the start of the race at the very least.
Yeah, these qualifying positions are going to be very unusual. You know, you're seeing some of the top guys at the back of the grid, maybe towards the midfield, and you'll see some of the more lower guys you saw at Silverstone. You know, they've really thrown the cat amongst the pigeons here, because you've seen both the Porsches, they were right down the field during the qualifying phase, and then they managed to launch themselves up. So be aware of what Pagnini and de Vos will be able to do. And of course, with the 10th and 11th, those two positions having a combined iRacing of 20,000, that is an unbelievable combined total. But we get set now for round 2 here at Fuji, and I wonder, Chris, what are going to be the things to look out for? Well, definitely the weather, because you can see there the spray kicking off the back of the rear tyres. So this is telling us, I think, multiple stories going on.
And we do have a mixture of dry and wet tyres. So we can see pole sitter David Bozga has opted for the dry tyres. So has Mihai Neg, Andrea Pagnini and Joop de Vos. Conrad Kula, Danny Neo, Ryan Woodrow, Caden Richardson and Luciano Witvoet, who for some reason on the timing has dropped down to 16th position, but they're all on the dry tyre. Everyone else is on wets. What on earth is going to happen when we get down to turn 1 for the first time of asking? There's going to be competing levels of grip from these machines, but it is David Bozga, the blue and yellow Ferrari, on the right-hand side of the grid as we currently look at it. Alexander Paulick, the white Castrol car, on the right-hand side as we're now looking at it. Drivers left. Now remember, they have to go through the grid hatchings, and for the second time, the race for the crown is on in Fuji, and a lovely start there from David Bozga, and Mihai Neg in the Ford immediately pouncing into second place. The superior speed from the Coyote V8 at the front of that Ford showing well. Remember, he's also on the dry tyres, so it's advantage slicks as they make their way into the first corner, and a much cleaner start compared to Silverstone. A bit of bumping and shuffling in the middle of the pack as drivers have various amounts of grip with the mixture of wets and dry tyres on at the moment. And off the road goes the race leader. So that was the difficulty we were seeing there with the slick tyre, and at the first left-hander, we're already seeing him struggle for grip, and he's fallen down to 3rd position, maybe even down to 4th. So it's Alexander Paulick on the wet tyre who goes into the lead, and goodness me, the pole sitter is falling all the way down the order.
Yeah, absolutely. A bit of contact there, I believe, involving the 24. They head their way through the next sequence of corners. Now they're going to be diving down towards one of the hot spot overtaking spots here, and you're just trying to find your way, really suss out the grip in these early stages. It's going to be so difficult, especially for the likes of Paulick, who's leading the way. He has no idea what these conditions are going to feel like. If we head through the chicane, it's getting very rough and tumble up in there as well. We've got the Porsche there of Joop de Vos, and there's a slide there, 2 spinners in the background. That's going to be a bit more carnage and a bit more race hurting there. The Corvette joining the fray as well.
Yeah, so Ryan Woodrow and Danny Neo, that was the number 18 Ford getting in there. And I think there's been a spin for Luciano Witvoet in the earlier stages of the lap as well. I caught a glimpse of a white and blue Ferrari going around, and that would be the championship leader. Now, as I said, at the end of turn 1, it was advantage slick. Well, at the end of lap 1, the top 6 are all on wet tyres. So it's Alexander Paulick and Gregory Hovesen, who didn't even finish inside the top 10 at Silverstone. And here he is battling for the lead in that NGK Spark Plugs sponsored Ford. Slightly further back, we've got Cody Cosford in the blue and yellow Ferrari going toe-to-toe with the Lion GP Mustang of Edelyi. And it's Cosford on the inside into turn 2 that takes 5th position away. Those are both cars with wet tyres on as it stands.
Yeah, indeed, those wet tyres really looking to thrive in these conditions. You see the spray just continuously picking up, and I think that's where kind of the advantage is. You know, you're seeing that spray being picked up. You know, the wet tyres are being cooled down. They're not going to be overheating whatsoever. So they're in the right conditions. I think we're starting right up at the top end. In fact, I believe it was a pole sitter. You know, he's really struggling. He's already 13 seconds behind the race leader. We now see Edelyi just carrying on there in P5, just trying to defend there from Cosford. But he's going to be wanting to make his way up the field. We have a look at a replay here.
Yeah, then we're going to see what happened to Witvoet on the opening lap of the race, and a tag there from one of the Mustangs and collected by Alberti as well. So that was the Kyle Domark Mustang that Witvoet made contact with, and that would explain why Kyle Domark is actually in the pit lane at the moment, as is Alberti.
Yeah, I wondered if they had a little bit of a collision between the two, but yep, it looks like they've both got damage. I haven't seen any of them moving either. We'll see what happened with Carl Domark. So, you see the front right there, the suspension is completely bent. He pulls off to the side of the road and thinks, yeah, I'm not going anywhere further. So that's... What about the Polish driver, Konrad Kula, in towards the chicane, and yeah, just having a bit of a ding-dong there, and he just loses the rear there. Yeah, usually we were speaking about that in the pre-show with the Porsches having really good traction. Looks like the Ferrari at that point just had absolutely nothing and was some very, very treacherous conditions.
So it is Ferrari leading an armada of Fords at the moment. Alexander Paulick leads by almost a second, doing the fastest lap of the race, 1:48.5, lapping around 11 seconds away from the lap record, which is an Alexander Imperatori lap record set in a Nissan GTR about 8 years ago. So that gives you an indication as to the time being lost in these conditions. And remember, all top 6 of those cars on wet tyres. But we may well see the slick tyre come into it later, because there's not an awful lot of spray, as we see dramas for Andrea Pagnini, the number 99 car, the black Porsche, going through what looks like turns 14 and 15. No, it's around the 300R, actually, heading towards the chicane. So that was actually on the exit of turn 6. And yeah, we're going to see what happened to Pagnini. So running wide, going into the chicane. I think I might have identified the corner correctly the first time around. So that was going into the chicane and then coming out into the third sector. So right now he's tucked up behind Danny Neo and Ryan Woodrow. The Soul Corvette, the pink Dollywood car.
Indeed, that's going to be, they're all in a line at the moment, so they're all heading down the straight, and they're going to have a long amount of slipstream there from that pink Corvette, and we'll just have to see if there's going to be potential move, because Danny Neo is tucked up right behind the said Corvette, and he will try and maneuver his way in towards turn number 1, but it looks like he's just maybe it's saving a little bit of fuel, lifting off, but with that inside line he should be able to make the move unless the Corvette does have any traction, which it seemingly does, and in towards 2 and then in towards 3 it goes. This is going to be pretty tight on board with the side camera. Well, this is going to be tight through 2 and 3. They're going to be through that sequence. I think one of them's going to be forced off wide a little bit. That's going to be the Ford Mustang, but they'll get through the next couple of corners, including these two trying to get in the background there.
Yeah, and Witvoet, the championship leader, showing his nose in that as well, in the blue and white Ferrari, on the recovery after that lap 1 contact. And this is not what we thought we'd be seeing Witvoet, who near enough dominated the first round of the season. What we'd expected to see him doing in this race. So back down into the chicane we go. Danny Neo, the Walk Racing colours on his car, just ahead of the Corvette. Meanwhile, this is side by side for 5th position once again between Cody Cosford and Balázs Edelyi, who did take the fastest lap of the race at Silverstone, and it's the Lion GP Ford on the inside into turn 1 that takes 5th position back again. So these two continuing to have a bit of a ding-dong out there. So Cody Cosford, the young Scotsman. Oh, big crash going on to the start and finish straight. That's Konrad Kula, and big rear suspension damage as it's crabbing down the start and finish straight. That is going to have to come into pit lane for repairs.
And that's going to be awful news for him. Now we'll have to see what this battle ensues. 2 or 3 or 4 may be involved in this one, all on the dry compounded tyre. So it looks like Neo it's just sticking ahead in all of this, and I think Woodrow is going to try and maybe come back at the Ford Mustang, because this time a lap ago they were side by side, and it looks like Neo had to concede the place, but we'll have to see what happened with Konrad Kula, the Polish driver, heading in towards that final corner, clipped the curb on the right hand side, and the car just pretty much went there, Chris.
Yeah, it certainly did. Had a spin while fighting with Alexander Paulick last time out at Silverstone, but a Reiter esports driver, so the official esports team of the Reiter engineering team that competes in LMP3 competition. As Luciano Witvoet on the inside of Ryan Woodrow there, the Ferrari on the inside of the Corvette, heading down into the heavy braking zone at turn 10, and Witvoet goes through to take 12th position now. And then it'll be Danny Neo just in front of him. So of the runners on slick tyres, they are currently 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th for Witvoet. So still a long way to go for the Dutchman. With that 10k I rating that you alluded to, they're the highest I rating in the field. But this is certainly not how we thought today was going to go. I'd be interested to hear what happened to him at the start, really, because he was due to start from 11th position and then seemingly started the race actually much closer to the rear of the field. But here's our race leader, Alexander Paulick, who continues to lead Gregory Hovesen by roughly 1 second. And it is the two NGK Sparkplug sponsored cars that are line astern at the moment, as Hovesen and Nikolai Pedersen are in 2nd and 3rd. And this was my nightmare scenario for this race, because those two liveries are absolutely identical, because they both compete in the Apex Racing Academy and for the Door Esports team in the Digital NLS series. So although Crown Racing Series is very much a driver-focused series, and it's the drivers who come and take part in the championship, we don't have any teams entered. Of course, a lot of these guys competing in other championships with various teams. We've got 3 drivers from Walk Racing, for example, the Lion GP driver Edelyi that we already alluded to, and these 2 drivers from the Door Esports team as well. Now, that was a bit of a scruffy lap there from Alexander Paulick, and the gap has come down an awful lot as we approach 11 minutes into this race.
Indeed, it does seem like those guys are really going to be maybe having a slow burner of a battle here, because you see that kind of quartet of Ford Mustang. I'm sure all of them would love to be involved, but it looks like Hovesen and Pedersen have really been the ones that have managed to gallop away from the pair of Kos and Edelyi. So I'll be interested to see how this all pans out, especially with Paulick. Will he be able to gallop his way in the prancing horse away from these two, or will he maybe push them into a trio battle, to a quintet battle? Now we're back with the dry runners. We're just seeing that number 69 there of Joop de Vos. I was interested to see how well he did. He was really the cat amongst the pigeons, but it just doesn't look like that dry tyre is working away here. You're seeing the gap between Cosford and Bozga. That is really telling to the gaps of the leading. You're just seeing that extending and extending and extending. It looks like de Vos has gone fuel saving mode a little bit of lifting off. So by doing that, you're not using any of the fuel to coat. You're just coasting your way down towards the first corner, and then with the brake, you're just managing to slow the car down. Yeah, giving up the ghost of what seemingly is 2 positions there, because there goes what is seemingly seemingly I think Witvoet I think now going on through. Yeah, he has. He's now up to 11th.
What's interesting here is that David Bozga, who is the top car on dry tyres at the moment in 7th position, is 25 seconds behind the next car, 30 off the race leader. And according to the timing screen, still lapping about a second slower than the next car. The slick car's only in the 1-minute 50s at best, whereas all of the wet runners are still within the 1:49s. So it's still very much advantage wet tyre at the moment. And of course, what these guys would have been hoping for was that if they were going to have to make a switch, they could do it during their fuel stop. But they've lost so much time in the first stage of this race that I can't see any of the drivers who started on the slick tyre fighting for the podium at this stage.
Indeed, I think I want to kind of because if you were a wet tyre and you were aware of the timing difference, would it be worth pitting or just staying out there that little bit longer so you can get a clearer idea of what we expect?
Well, Ryan Woodrow, meanwhile, trying to take a place back from Luciano Witvoet. So that's 11th position being disputed as they go over the timing line. It's the big thumping Corvette V8 in the middle of the Corvette. Oh, he loses it under braking and wipes out the championship leader going into the first corner. Ryan Woodrow in a big accident there with Luciano Witvoet, who has towed to the pit lane. Oh my goodness, when it rains, it pours.
Yeah, unbelievable. That is not what we expected in this race. But yeah, we'll have a look and see what happened to Ryan Woodrow. I think he just lost the car. I think maybe just had on the wet line, it seemed like potentially. I thought it may be down to a braking issue, but no, I think I just managed to catch a bit of a puddle there on the dry tyres, remember, and then cast the car into the side there a bit.
And you've got that pit exit line as well, which I'm sure is very slippery. As meanwhile, Alexander Paulick is coming under increasing pressure for the race lead from the two chasing Fords, Hovesen and Pedersen, who we mentioned are teammates in other championships. Will they start acting like teammates in this one? They've both got the same livery on the car, and they're both attacking the same guy at the moment.
Yeah, indeed. It does seem like, well, let's have a look at this one, because it's Edelyi and Kos, both Ford Mustangs, having a big old ding-dong. Door-to-door on that part here, and it looks like Edelyi has to get up the ghost on that part, but it looks like Igor Kos has gone a little bit too deep into the left-hander, and how will this affect him through the right-hander? Well, he's just now having to, he's just having to go defensive there. Edelyi thought about down the inside. That's a big move. They collided, and off goes the blue Ford Mustang, and Edelyi might have to get a penalty post-race for that one, as squeezing on through, I think that was Cosford. So he said thank you very much for that, and he's up into full play. Meanwhile, Igor Kos is feeling a bit of sorrow, a little bit of anger as well at the same time. Let's have a look at this one, Chris.
Yeah, real shame for Igor Kos there, as he had Edelyi right up the inside, heading towards turn 6, and the Mustang going around, able to continue, but I wouldn't be at all surprised to discover that there is some damage to the left rear corner on that car. Meanwhile, last time around, David Bozga, the lead slick tyre runner, just did the fastest lap of the race, a 1:47.9, so the slick tyres finally coming into play about 60 minutes into this race. The problem he's got, he's 26 seconds behind the leader, but he's really closing up now. He's quicker than the race leader, and of course he will have just gained by all that melee that was happening between Edelyi and Kos and Cosford as well, that the Scotsman did benefit greatly from. So it's still Paulick leading the way on the wet tyres, the 37-year-old from Leipzig. As still Cosford and Edelyi are scrapping away for this 4th position. They're about 6 seconds behind the podium battle now. And is that bit blinking for Cody Cosford there? That is not going to be encouraging for Edelyi at all. Edelyi, the 18-year-old from Győr in Hungary. I think the youngest driver in the field, if not certainly one of the youngest.
Indeed has been impressed to see his progress. Of course, it's quite a new championship, and I'm sure that in the years to come he will be a formidable racer. But yeah, for now he is just trying to learn his craft, and he's got of course the blinking Cody Cosford right in behind him in that Ferrari 296 GT3. Of course, the Ferrari, who is quite aerodynamically stable, I'd say, is looking pretty nifty. So we'll cut back here to the lead of the race, because now we see Hovesen is just having a look at a couple of gaps that may be appearing in the side of Paulick. You'll have to see if there is an intact gap towards turn number 1. But again, I think this is just going to be a slow burner here, Chris, because we know that you can just see that Hovesen and Pedersen, both Ford Mustang, just pulling off to the right-hand side there to cool the tyres down here and get some wet patches on those wet tyres. So that's going to be so important, because if they start overheating, that's going to be a massive problem for the Ford Mustang and Paulick. Really something to keep an eye out for, because the minute they start really dying off, they'll have to come into the pit lane and maybe change that strategy.
Well, you would think as well, with the track moving towards the slick tyre now, maybe this is the time to do the fuel stop and get onto the slick tyre before Bozga makes up too much of the ground, because he was 5 seconds quicker than the race leader on the previous lap. 1:45.7 for Bozga in 7th position, 1:50 for Alexander Paulick in the lead of the race. Surely the time to come in now and get onto that dry tyre, but then we're expecting rain towards the end of the race as well. Do you want to keep the wet tyre for a little bit longer? Do you want to put that on as late as humanly possible so that you've got more grip when the rain does arrive? I mean, there's so many options that these guys can take.
Yeah, indeed, but remember, there is a mandatory stop, so you do have to make it at some point, and I just wonder if it is best to do it around about now, because those tyres, I believe that they will make the full 50 minutes, but if you have rain, they will do the kind of the time that they need to do within this drying track, and then you all have that open option of, okay, I've been on the best tyre that I needed to for the last 20 minutes. Now I just need to figure out when the best time is to come in for wets. So this is going to be a massive question mark for these for the wet tyre. But it's not just the wet tyre runner that are thinking, it's also the dry tyre, because they need to make a mandatory pit stop as well. But at what point do they do that? Again, wet tyres are also going to be a potential for the end. I'm sure they're going to have that waiting right out at the front of the pit garage. So yeah, it's a question on two different stories here.
Interesting to me that Paulick is not looking for the wet patches, whereas all the cars behind him are. What does Paulick know that everyone else doesn't, I wonder? Because he's not concerned about burning through the wet tyre, or at least trying to keep the temperatures under control. I mean, he's very much in control of this race at the moment, but lost another 5 seconds or so to David Bozga, who's now on the back of Igor Kos, the last car on the wet tyre, as it stands, in 6th position. So Bozga, having been about 30 seconds off the race lead just a few laps ago, looks like he's going to start to make his way through the wet tyre runners. And in fact, he's already through. So there is Bozga. Remember, he started on pole position and slid back in the early stages of the race, as the wet tyre was the preferred tyre for the conditions. But he's now starting to make his way back through the cars that started on the wet tyres. Dispatch of Igor Kos up into 6th position. The next car is Cody Cosford, 6 seconds up the road.
Yeah, indeed. We'll have to see how that all kind of pans out now, because Bozga is now becoming a thorn in the side of these wet tyre runners. He's still sliding out of corners, is the Belgian driver, but he is really thundering his way on towards the next, of course, the next car, which is going to be Cosford. And in comes Igor Kos, the Ford Mustang, pulls his way into pit lane and is going to be the first pitter in this entire field. So Igor Kos is being asked here to make a big decision. Will he go on to the dry tyres? I think so, Chris. I think this is the time now for those wet tyres to just give up the ghost and go for the dries.
I wouldn't be surprised if he does emerge on the dry tyre. It's certainly the tyre of the moment. I'm just making sure I have down who started on the wet tyre so we can compare how they work out later on, because there's still a chance of some differing strategies between these guys, depending on what they do in this stop. So remember, they don't have enough fuel for the full race distance. So they do have to come in for a refuel. They have the option to change tyres as well, and can confirm Igor Kos coming back out on slick tyres. But of course, those will be stone cold tyres, and he'll be coming out onto a wet bit of the racetrack. So he does still have to take it very easy for the first few corners and build that tyre temperature.
Yeah, I also want to say, look at Bozga, look at the gap to Cosford. He's closed that right back up, and in fact, as I say that, he's switching position with them. He's going around the outside of the Ferrari, and that is now a really telling sign. He's within frame here of the race leaders. So this is going to be a big moment in this in the story of this race here at Fuji. Again, pulling right up to the pit wall was those two Ford Mustangs. And Bozga is a man on a mission. In comes, it looks like somebody's coming out the pit lane. I believe that might be Federico Alberti, a question. Or is that going to be Conrad Kula? It's either one of the two. I'm trying to decipher. Yeah, just trying to decipher from my track, from the tracker there. But he's just now pulling off to the left-hand side to just let everyone through. He's back marker, of course.
What's the thinking here between the top four? Because Bozga is clearly the fastest driver on the track as he makes his way past Balash Edelyi now and into fourth position. I don't see what the strategy is for these guys who are still out there on wet tyres. I mean, surely are they just thinking that, well, we're on the wrong tyre for now, may as well stick with it and try and gain a little bit later on rather than just jump on what everyone else is doing? Either they're much smarter than me, which is probably the solution, or they're on the wrong strategy.
I think they've got caught out, in all honesty, Chris, because they seem to be bassing away with each other. You just have a look at Paulick, Hovesen and Pedersen. I think they've just waited for each other to react so long that they're now seeing a Ferrari go down the inside that started on pole, went back 30 seconds, and is now gaining on them completely. And I think they've just been staring at each other, waiting for each other to react for so long. All three of them have just been caught out. It's unbelievable. Now, David Bozga, who is now sitting in the toe of his fellow Ferrari 296 GT3, he's going to pull out to the right-hand side in just a moment in time, and will now see himself head down towards turn number 1 and up into the lead of the race from pole position down towards, I believe, 7th. Back up into the race lead within 26 minutes. This race might be the definition of topsy-turvy, Chris.
I mean, absolutely extraordinary. So the pole sitter back in his rightful place, so to speak. It's safe to say that the other dry-tired cars are also starting to make their way through, because Mihai Neg is up to 6th position, and Ryan Woodrow is just on the fastest lap of the race as well, in 12th position. So it's all change out there still. There was a swap, meanwhile, between the two of the NGK spark plug livery cars. Nikolai Pedersen moving ahead of Greg Hovesen. So Pedersen, the Danish driver and Danish Supercars driver, runner-up in that championship last year with Berk Motorsports. As we've got more moves here. Mihai Neg, the Romanian, has now moved up to 5th position, was the fastest driver on the track a few moments ago. Mihai running the Romanian Dacian flag on his car, as are the other Walk Racing cars, the Dracul Wolf, which is the sort of dragon-esque decal you can see, as he's got past one of those Fords and up into 4th position. So dispatched of Hovesen, now on the back of Pedersen for 3rd position. Down the 1.4 kilometre start and finish straight. Both of these cars powered by the 5.4 litre Coyote V8, but one on wet tyres and one on slicks, and through goes Mihai Neg up into 3rd position.
Indeed, I was just going to say the fastest lap to between the wet tyres to the dry tyres was 6.5 seconds. You're seeing how clear it is now. David Kos, Bozga has just gone and done a 41.3, so that is it's entirely telling. 7 seconds compared to the time of Alexander Paulick. That's day and night in terms of a difference. So I think I'm going to go back to what I said about 3 or 4 laps ago. Is I think those wet tyre leaders have just been waiting for each other to blink for so long, they just didn't realise what was going on with the dry tyres. They were all waiting for each other to react. None of them did, and they've all caught themselves out.
Mihai Neg now up into second position. It was 2 moves there in 3 corners for the Romanian, the 26-year-old, who is now 8 seconds behind the race leader. This is on board with Caden Richardson, the sole Mercedes in the field, the American driver. And he is about to take Greg Hovesen on the inside in this final sector, coming through turns 14 and 15. See the Mercedes on the outside line there, and very nearly contact between the 2 cars as Hovesen slid his way out of there, but it's the 22-year-old from Nevada who manages to go through into 5th position. Hellraiser on YouTube, you may know him as. So this is the change here between Alexander Paulick, who has been leading the race for so long, and goes straight on at the first corner, and that is an open door for Nikolai Pedersen to go through and take the place. But here comes Caden Richardson as well on the slick tyres, who rounds up Paulick and now is going to round up Pedersen as well on the inside into turn 3 and take 3rd position.
Yeah, some superb driving there, but you're just seeing how superior the dry tyres are. So at this point, if you're a wet tyre runner, what do? You may have to just bite the bullet here and make your way into the pit lane here. So we'll just have to see what has happened here with Caden Richardson. He's gone slightly off the track, in fact. I think that was just a little bit of a wide moment there. He tries to adjust with his dry compound tyre, but yeah, you can see there he's leaving Pedersen in the dust here. So now 20 minutes left in the race. We've had 17 laps. The tyres have definitely gone through some time here, whether that be the wets, whether that be the dries, and now we're just trying to see if there's going to be any form of differences. But yeah, you just see in there Balaz Edelyi, who's now in that Ford Mustang, just waiting to tippy-toe his way through this very tricky section. He's now got a Porsche there of Igor Kos, who had an accident during qualifying. I don't know if anyone saw, but you can just maybe see from the screens of our presenters, our wonderful presenters, I saw a damaged Porsche with the front bent in, and that was in fact Igor Kos, and he's now charging his way up the field. So it looks like at the moment he is 5th in terms of those dry runners, 8th on the row. So somebody has made their way into the pits as well. We'll confirm that in just a moment. I believe that's Cody Cosford.
Yeah, he's only the 2nd driver to come in. And we're 20 minutes from the checkered flag. We're more than halfway through the race. I am told we're not far away from some more rain arriving. So is that what everyone's been waiting for? And okay, let's say everybody jumps onto the wet tyre when that rain arrives. Well, still, Pedersen and Paulick, they're now 24 seconds behind the race leader. So they've definitely lost out in this phase of the race.
We spoke about it at the beginning, at the pre-show. Be on the right tyre, the right conditions. I just think some of the drivers just didn't listen to that. So, yeah, they didn't follow what Bradley Philpott was saying, and they've kind of suffered the consequences. We'll have to see how this all kind of pans out. Danny Neo, who was involved in a lap 1, turn 1 crash at Silverstone, is actually now putting himself up into 4th. Lighted came into the Fuji Speedway weekend last in the championship, and we've had a bit of an accident. That's going to be the former race leader Paulick. Paulick has been smashed off, it seems like, by one of the I'm going to say that one of the wet tyre runners, and that's going to be a massive disappointment for him. He's going to be so frustrated, and I wonder if that's going to be a call for the pit lane. As in comes Neg, it seems like, the Romanian.
Yeah, from 2nd position. So what tyre does he choose to go on? Because they know that there's some rain forecast. Surely you wouldn't go back out on a slick now, but then And the wet tyre doesn't seem to be very good at the moment either. Oh, I don't know. What do you do? We've got a flurry of them in, though, because Nikolai Pedersen, Greg Hovesen, Balázs Edelyi, and Alexander Paulick, all of the wet tyre runners, are now into pit lane. So are they going to ditch the wet tyres and try and brave the slicks out in a slightly damper end to the race? Well, we'll find out later. Of course, stopping later does mean that you end up spending a bit less time refueling the car. And I can tell you for now that Pedersen and Edelyi have stuck with the wet tyres.
I'm sorry, Chris, but that really baffles my brain. You know, they've just been struggling for lap after lap after lap. And now those wet compound on tyres. So they're going to have to really figure out what is happening. Rain is apparently imminent, I'm hearing in my ear. It's just how vicious is that rain going to be? And is it going to come very quickly, or is it going to just take its time? Is it really going to like graduate over the course of 6 minutes? And even then, it might just be pitter-patter by the end of the 50 minutes. So a massive amount of questions where we now approach 15 minutes to go left in this race. The spray is seemingly picking up. I don't know if you saw there, just off the back of Alexander Paulick. I think the spray is just starting to pick up now. So will Pedersen, Edelyi, Paulick, Hovesen, Kos will come back into this? It's seemingly a roll of the dice at this rate.
More drivers coming in: Caden Richardson, Danny Neo, Joop de Vos, Ryan Woodrow, and Andrea Pagnini from second down to sixth. The race leader David Bozga staying out for now. Now into the 139s in his Ferrari that continues to lead the way. And Woodrow has gone for the wet tyre, so he's made the switch, as has Joop de Vos. So it seems like wets are now the tyres to be on, with 15 minutes remaining in this race. So maybe we can't just quite see how treacherous the conditions are becoming. There's a little bit more spray out there. I'm also just going to very briefly draw your attention back to Luciano Witvoet, who has been in pit lane for the last 21 minutes, presumably looking for repairs. And I think if he stays in there for another 4 minutes, he won't complete half race distance and he won't be eligible for points. So just to rub a little bit more salt in the Dutchman's wounds, he may not even leave Fuji with any points at all. As it stands, it would be Bozga who takes the championship lead as Paulick and one of the Mustangs come together. That was Greg Hovesen. They had just completed their stop a few laps ago, both on the wet tyre, and it's the Ford that gets pushed out.
Yeah, that's going to be massively unfortunate. We'll see who it is. It is, I believe, Gregory Hovesen. Just squeezes. I'm not going to lay the blame at anyone's door. I think it just two doesn't go into one. You know, there was not really much room for either of them to kind of go with. And the rain has now come down here, and this is going to be massive here. Bozga is into the pits as well. Is he going to be coming out on those dry compound tyre? I think so, Chris. This is going to be absolutely massive. He may have just missed the window by a minute here, but look at his leads. I'm being told actually he did not change tyres. I'm just seeing that gap coming down rapidly, so we'll have to see how that all pans out. Bozga is now on the race circuit here in that beautiful yellow and dark blue Ferrari, but will he be able to hold on?
So only Joop de Vos and Ryan Woodrow went from the dry tyre to the wet. Now, David Bozga, Mihai Neg, Caden Richardson, Danny Neo, and Igor Kos, your top five at the moment. How quickly are they going to regret staying on the dry tyre? Because look how dark it's gotten all of a sudden. We can see the rain starting to come down, and we'll take a look at the lap times, because it's not entirely fair, because some people have only done an outlap at the moment. But looking at the sector times, I think it's fair to say that the wet tyres are not far away from becoming the superior tyre once again.
Yeah. Indeed, I'm just having a look at some of the timing, but of course, it will take a while for some of the tires to come into its own here. So we're just waiting for maybe a couple of laps, and we'll just continue to have a look at the information that we're given on our timer screens there with a slight update. Very slightly wet is the weather information we're big given, but I don't know how this is going to come about here, because it's going to be whatever happens for the next 12 minutes deciphers how this race is going to go. If it pours down heavy, then I think the advantage is going to go to the likes of De Vos and Pedersen, and I wonder if it maybe just graduates over time. If those hot, dry tyres will be able to keep in the zone until maybe that last lap or two, which by that time Bozga may be able to hang on for a race win here. But continuous battles all over the road here. You're seeing Andrea Pagnini just trying to hang on around the outside of Hovesen, and they're both on the wet compound tyres. So this is how interesting this is going to turn out. So keep an eye on this one.
So everyone's now done their stop. It's about 11 minutes to go in this race as Pagnini gets up the inside into the final corner on the Ford. Gregory Hovesen, how different his race looks from about 5 minutes ago, down in 12th position at the moment. Getting very, very close. It's the flat six in the rear of the Porsche against the Coyote V8 at the front of the Ford. Absolutely level pegging as they make their way down the 1.4 kilometer start and finish straight, but it's Pagnini, the Italian, on the inside going into turn one, and Hovesen with a bit of curb having to yield that one. So nearly 18 seconds is the advantage for David Bozga, the Belgian, out of the front of the field. That could be critical for the closing stages of this race. It is Mihai Neg in second position in the Ford and Caden Richardson in the Mercedes that is in third position ahead of Danny Neo and Igor Kos, who are all on dry tyres as it stands. Joop de Vos, the first of the wet tyre runners, and 54 seconds from the race leader, who's back in pit lane, surely bailing for the wet tyre. Now, is anyone else going to make that switch?
Yep, this is going to be a crucial stop here. David Bozga is going to lose a lot of time here, but he's going to have to gain that back with his driving. The next wet tyre, I believe, 52 seconds behind. That's going to be Joop de Vos, the Dutchman in the Porsche. So we'll have to see how that all kind of pans out. Look at that, Neg, Richardson, Neo is all... and yeah, Neo is responding. Igor Kos is the only one staying out. So it looks like the German driver is going to risk it all here. 10 minutes remaining. That is going to be a very, very long 10 minutes. You'll probably be able to get 6 laps. I don't think they'll be able to go 6 laps here. Through goes Joop de Vos here. And now exiting. David Bozga will head in towards turn number 1, but will not be the case here. In toward the net race lead will be Joop de Vos. What about Pedersen, who's had a really, really strong showing last time out of Silverstone? Unfortunately, a penalty denied him a podium, but he'll have to slot there into 4th. The race is coming all together now, Chris.
What a thrilling finale we have here for the second race of the Crown Racing Series. The rain here at Fuji has just made this absolutely captivating as we have Alexander Paulick going side by side with Cody Cosford. I think David Bozga's ended up losing position to Nikolai Pedersen as well, because Pedersen's now showing in 3rd position. So that's a costly stop that Bozga had to make. I don't think Igor Kos is going to be out there in the lead for much longer, because he's already lost 2 seconds or so on this lap so far, made that 3 seconds. So it won't be long before Joop de Vos manages to close down what is now a 10-second lead for Kos, who has stayed out on the slick tyre. I commend your bravery, Mr. Kos, but I don't think it's quite going to work out for you.
No, I think he's just trying to maybe do a little bit of trying to better his position. Oh, that's a bit of a hip and shoulder there. Alexander Paulick. Paulick's going to try around the outside now in those wet conditions. Try and find where you can maybe find the grip. They say use the karting line to go on that outside line, find the grip, avoid all the puddles, and then try and just work your way around the outside. But here comes Igor Kos. He comes over the timing line. I think, yeah, he's gone up 7 places from his starting position. So I think he's just trying to improve on his starting spot. But, this is now starting to become very, very difficult. He's doing 2-minute lap times here. And at this rate, he'll probably be able to get in maybe 4 laps, I want to estimate. But yeah, of course, we know that Igor Kos is going to go through on him, because look at that, 11 seconds faster than the Ford Mustang. But in fact, Igor Kos has now gone off the track here. And I think that's very, very telling. Just have a look at the tyre graphic here on that left-hand side. Kos has gone too wide. He's now going to hand over a whole heap of positions.
Duke de Vos through into the lead then in the Porsche, and off the road goes Igor Kos now and into the barriers. The gamble to stay on the slick tyre has absolutely not worked, plummeting down the order and now damage to the Ford Mustang. So Duke de Vos now the Dutch driver who leads by just under 2 seconds to Nikolai Pedersen. Oh, more cars going off. Cody Cosford and Alexander Paulick as well.
Yeah, let's have a look at this one, because they were side by side. They were really battling hard a couple of laps ago. Oh, it looks like, they've just, Paulick's understeered into him, it seems like, and then just started whacking the door of his fellow Ferrari, and then they just spun round like a ballet performance.
Well, plenty of drama for the highlights reel for both Alexander Paulick and Cody Cosford in this race. Unfortunately, now one for the lowlights reel as well. This could be the change for second place here, with David Bozga trying to get back up past Nikolai Pedersen. Remember, he lost the place to the Mustang on his outlap when he went onto the wet tyres, trying to get them up to temperature. He has outdragged the Ford for now, but the Ford back in the slipstream down the start and finish straight. Bozga defends to the inside, Pedersen to the outside, and it is the former race leader who does just manage to hold ahead going into the first corner. So now the question is, can he close down Duke de Vos and try to regain the lead in the race? It's 5 minutes left on the clock as Igor Kos brings his car back into pit lane for repairs and probably a change to wet tyres. But 5 minutes to go. The battle is on between Duke de Vos and David Bozga.
Yeah, this is going to be very, 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 very tough one in terms of the weather conditions. Oh, that's a big moment there. Pedersen's trying to go up the inside. Oh, I think he's going to do bumper to bumper there, front bumper to rear bumper there. I thought Bozga was going to go sliding on at the hairpin there, but evidently he's managed to just keep on the road there. And also kudos to Nikolai Pedersen for not ramming the back of the Ferrari. He's very, very eager here, Chris, to try and find a way through. And I wonder if he's going to be able to just handle the mice that Ford, because of course it is a front wheel in these wet conditions. So I wonder what it's going to be like for them in those dampening conditions. Now we're just seeing Cody Cosford here. He's battling for P8 and he's got Paulick. So the two that collided a couple of moments ago, they're now back with each other, just sniffing all the fumes coming off of that Ferrari 296 GT3.
Great shot once again. It's Cosford and Paulick still locked in a battle for 8th position. Cosford will be hoping he's done the fuel calculations correctly this time, as he crawled to the finish line last time out at Silverstone. It's crazy to think that Paulick was leading so much at the early stages of this race. So he looked up the inside going into the final corner there. These two have kept us entertained for a really, really long time in this one. 3.5 minutes left on the clock. The lead gap 3.2 seconds as Bozga lost out by a second to Duke de Vos while he was battling with Pedersen. Let's see with a bit of clean air whether Bozga can try and close down that gap again. But I don't think Pedersen is going to have let him have it his own way. And it's Porsche leading Ferrari, leading Ford as we head towards the checkered flag. And yet, change again for second place. Pedersen back through.
Yeah, that's going to be crucial there. We knew how mighty Nikolai Pedersen was going to be. He was all over the rear of Bozga, and now he's just managed to make that move, which I sensed was going to be happening probably the last 2 or 3 laps. He was right on the rear end of that Ferrari. Is he going to be able to get it slowed down in towards the chicane? They take the wide line, try and find the grip to tighten up the car. And then they're just trying to find the way through. But again, that Ferrari sticks on the inside line, but gets pushed off there. And it looks like Pedersen is just saying, absolutely no, you don't. The Ferrari finds the way through. And Bozga, fighting for all of his might, the Ford Mustang will try that outside line, try the karting line up this is super tricky section. He's going to have that inside line, but with the outside line potentially more grip, Bozga is really fighting this one all the way through. Now onto towards the main straight we go. 2 minutes left of this one here, folks. Don't go away. We've got a grand slam finish here for second place as well. And it looks like Pedersen's going to go defensive. Bozga with that Ferrari is going to really just try and side draft. It seems like that Ford Mustang is going to be bravery on the brakes down in towards the first corner here.
Big braking maneuver on the outside from David Bozga, who's still trying to get this move done on Nikolai Pedersen. Still, they run side by side on the exit of the corner. I mean, Robert Kubica and Felipe Massa eat your heart out as they bang wheels heading towards turn 3. Again, Bozga goes through, but a cutback from the Ford means that he gets the better drag out of there. And around 100 are the wide line being taken by Pedersen, who's just got half a car length in front, now a full length in front, and manages to pull clear of Bozga. But I'm sure that the man who is third in the championship, poised to take the championship lead, I think, regardless of how this battle plays out. Remember, both these guys were on the podium on the road in Silverstone, and it will be the same again here. So long as they don't wipe each other out, they've got a lap and a half still to try and sort this one out, and still it's Pedersen wide through the chicane, but just keeping Bozga at bay.
Yeah, but Bozga looks like he's going to be really strong in this section. We saw this a lap ago. I think he's going to be able to potentially find a way through, unless Pedersen, the Dane, is going to bring out his full Viking, try and maybe go fully defensive. Someone else is going fully defensive. There is Alexander Paulick, really trying to shut the fender face for Cosford. But we go back to this battle for a second again. Bozga still side by side, but he's now going to duck into the slipstream of Nikolai Pedersen, and they make their way down on towards turn number 1, and it looks like the clock has ticked 50. This is going to be the last lap here, but we've got this move to be made here. Will he go to the inside line, Bozga, or will he try that outside line and potentially try and look for the dry condition? He tries to turn in, but there is a Ford Mustang. There is a whole Ford Mustang just sitting on that inside corner, and again, a great defense. A big wall being put up there by Pedersen, saying absolutely no, you don't. Into wall 3 they go. Bozga still holding on. This is going to go on for a while, but it looks like the Ferrari now slips ahead.
Great battling once again to close out here, the Crown Racing Series. We are pretty sure that Joop de Vos is going to win this one, but what order will the drivers behind him be on the podium as Bozga and Pedersen continue to battle it out? It is the Ferrari that is just in front going into turn 6. Now, for all the talk of the Ford's superior straight line speed, they seem to have been pretty evenly matched so far in this one. Now, this is a part of the racetrack I think Pedersen has been a little bit quicker in, but Bozga is starting to pull away a little bit now as they break towards turn 10, the slowest corner on the racetrack. And Pedersen is surely going to start running out of opportunities because the Ferrari seems to be very good in that third and final sector of the racetrack. So as it stands, Bozga in second place and I believe poised to take the championship lead away from Luciano Witvoet, who I don't think is going to be coming away from him here with any points at all. How much more different could it be from the first race at Silverstone? It has been an absolutely joyous race to watch, with the different strategies between slick tyres and wet tyres, and the battles on track that have just been absolutely superb to watch as well. Here comes Joop de Vos. The checkered flag is being readied. He wins race 2 of the Crown Racing Series at Fuji Speedway. An extraordinary maiden victory for the Dutchman. Second across the line will be David Bozga once again, as it was at Silverstone, with the fastest lap of the race. He takes the championship lead with it as well, and Nikolai Pedersen has to settle for third position after an almighty scrap with Bozga in the closing stages of that race. Adam, what a phenomenal 50 minutes of racing we've just watched.
Oh, can we do that all again, Chris? Because that was absolutely superb. It is double Dutch delight. Of course, Witvoet, who won in Silverstone. It's Joop de Vos, who wins in Fuji. It's going to be a serious party in Holland. And I can imagine how well they rave over there.
Joop de Vos, who finished 6th at Silverstone and didn't really have a look in for the podium at any point in the race, but has come here, played the strategy perfectly as well. Remember, he was the first of the slick tyre runners to bail onto the wet tyre. I don't think anyone saw that being the correct strategy, but that's how it's played out. Bozga, I'm sure, will be thinking what could have been. He led a fair chunk of that race, and 4.6 seconds shy in the end at the checkered flag. After a great ding-dong with Nikolai Pedersen. Balázs Edelyi once again in 4th position. It was 4th on the road for Edelyi in Silverstone. And settles for 4th here with Ryan Woodrow after a very dramatic race in 5th position, and Gregory Hovesen. Oh man, what could have been there? Let's run through the full race result then. It's Joop de Vos for the first time, a race winner in the Crown Racing Series. 4.6 seconds to the good over David Bozga, ahead of Nikolai Pedersen, 5 seconds away from the race leader. Porsche, Ferrari and Ford all on the top 3 on the podium. Balázs Edelyi in 4th position, Ryan Woodrow in 5th, Gregory Hovesen in 6th position. Then Andrea Pagnini, the second of the Porsches, in 7th position. Alexander Paulick settles for 8th position ahead of Cody Cosford and Danny Neo, completing the top 10. Caden Richardson and Mihai Neg, their late gamble didn't work out for them in the end. Igor Kos, we saw damage for him. He had to come across the line in 13th position in the end. And then we had dramas for Conrad Kula, Federico Alberti, Luciano Witvoet, the big drama there with the championship leader not scoring points in this one. Kyle Domark, who never really seemed to get off the mark in that one. An extraordinary race here from Fuji Speedway. We're back in a month's time to go to the Daytona International Speedway. But for now, let's head back to the studio and look back on that race.